Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Liqok Zakiya. My student number is A320200129 and I am from Group 6. In this video, I will continue the presentation of our group about do children have any rights? Okay. The theory interest. Theorizing about right has not been dominated by the choice theory, but by an ongoing debate between the choice theory and another different theory which is usually called the interest theory. On this account, rights are not only justified by their role in protecting choice, but by their role in giving people opportunities for their lives to go well. Is there an argument for the interest theory of right over the theory of choice of right? There is clearly no consensus among philosophers. Indeed, this dispute has been raging for as long as philosophers have thought of rights. So it is impossible for us here to give argument which will convince opponent. However, we can set views that we think are reasonable and seem to support the theory of interest. Is there an argument for the interest theory of right over the theory of choice of right? There is clearly no consensus among philosophers. Indeed, this dispute has been raging for as long as philosophers have thought of right. So it is impossible for us here to give argument which will convince opponent. It seems to us that the purpose of social and moral institution is to make people's life better than they should be, rather than to protect individual choice. Given our assumption about the purpose of social institution and subsequent observation, it does not seem clear to limit the choice of very strict protection and guarantees that are protected by rights. If adults have an interest in being able to have a certain kind of relationship with children, and reliably enabling people to have such a relationship requires assigning them right over their children, then the interest theory will say that parents have precisely those right over children. That all children have a right to quality health care is clear under the interest theory because health care furthers every child's current and future well-being. This an interest theorist would argue is a moral right that translates into a legal right that obligates adults and the state to ensure that all children are cared for. And the next is, why might children not have rights? We want to evaluate two arguments against children being rights bearers made by Honora O'Neill, which are, we think, made from within the interest theory of right. O'Neill claimed the children have positive right, but she argued that the language of fundamental right does not adequately secure all, and indeed obscure much that is owed to children because taking rights and fundamental in looking at ethical issues in children's lives. Much of what children need in order to acquire what is due to them falls into the category of imperfect obligation. What children need are special relationships with adults who take on the necessary roles to secure a child's well-being, like parents, teachers, and social workers. These adults take on a role that carries an ethical obligation to children. This argument certainly impugns thinking of what is owed to children solely in terms of right, but it does not impugn right talk with respect to children altogether. It seems reasonable, for example, to think that each child has a right to some level of education. Similarly, it seems reasonable to think that each child has a right to a high level of care. The child will be better off and the relationship more fulfilling if the parents regard the child with love and care, not as merely someone who has right against her. But this morally full relationship is compatible with seeing the child as having some specific right which one is required to observe and which one is in an uniquely suitable position to protect. This does not mean that at all times the child rights to nurturing from the adult's interest. It is good for a child to have music lesson, but providing them might take away money being spent on a parent's education toward a more fulfilling job. A parent is not obligated to provide all things that are merely good for a child, but ought to do so some of the time. O'Neill also makes a second, more political critique of the idea of children's rights. signals that a central purpose of the Grand Declaration of Rights, from the Declaration of the Rights of Man to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, is to empower the powerless. Again, she is right, but children's rights may have a different important political function. Right talk exhort the disadvantaged to assert their equality, but it also reminds the privileged to withdraw their assertion of superiority. Human rights documents say this to the powerful. This function has great significance for children's rights. It draws the attention of government, welfare agencies, and parents to the independent standing of the child, and the centrality of her interest in determining policy, intervention, and her upbringing respectively. Thank you, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.